Attorney General, unconstitutional?
If the bill's passed in its present form, yes. I hope the Senate will stop it. It's bad public policy. It doesn't protect people with pre-existing conditions. It'll cost millions of people health care. But if they pass the bill in the form the House passed it, it is unconstitutional. It includes an unconstitutional attack on women's right to reproductive health services, including abortion. It's drafted in a way that really, in a tricky way, tries to wipe out Planned Parenthood. It goes after states funding prohibited entities with federal Medicaid funds, but prohibited entities is defined in a way that the only thing in the country that qualifies is Planned Parenthood. So it's an effort to kill off Planned Parenthood, which would impose an undue burden on women's constitutionally protected rights to abortion.
Because, of course, currently, according to the Supreme Court, it is still the law of the land.
It is still a constitutional right. And it would also say that you can't be a qualified health plan if you provided certain constitutionally protected abortion services. If you can't be a qualified health plan, you're off the health care exchanges. You can't qualify for subsidies. So all of this offends the Constitution in two ways. You can't impose an undue burden on a constitutionally protected right. And clearly there are areas of the country where the only provider is Planned Parenthood. And this would impose an undue burden on women in that area. And you can't impose unconstitutional conditions on a state. You can't require a state to stop funding breast cancer screenings because they also fund a constitutionally protected right with separate funds. Federal funds aren't used for abortions now. This is an effort to cut off funding for breast cancer screenings, education on sexually transmitted disease. It imposes an undue burden on women's constitutional rights.
Now, though this is not the law of the land, right? This just went through the House. It could change dramatically in the Senate.
Correct.
You are not filing this lawsuit, right? You're not going to go ahead and file it until
we are beseeching the Senate to make sure this never becomes the law of the land. It's also unconstitutional in that it has a provision that's targeted directly at New York State to intervene improperly, because the federal government has no interest in intervening in the sovereign interests of a state, in how we provide our Medicaid funding for health care, that we now divide the funding between the state government and local governments. There is no legitimate federal interest in interfering with that. That's just an effort by some New York congressmen. They wanted this in return for their votes. It's really a cynical ploy, and it's unconstitutional in both those respects. But as you say, I hope it'll never become law. I hope we'll be able to save a lot of time and trouble and not have to bring this litigation.